Welcome everyone to another episode of Get Resource Smart. I am your host, Flo Nicholas, and we focus on putting a spotlight on organizations right here in our lovely state of New Hampshire that are providing resources for our residents. So today I am really excited to have Center of Women Enterprise, CWE. I'd like to introduce the director here, Chandra Reber. And we also have a good success story. You know, once we get into details about what CWE is, we're going to bring you in Liz Salas Evans, because you are one of the business owners who has benefited from the services of CWE. So to start right off, welcome. I'm so happy to have you here today.
Thank you, Flo. This is really exciting.
I know. Welcome to my playground.
Yes.
I guess this is where the magic happens. So let's talk a little bit about CWE, Center for Women Enterprise, because we probably have a lot of audience members that probably don't know who you are, and I just want to make sure that they do know who you are and the services that are offered. So let's kind of get in detail of who CWE is.
Yeah, I'd love to tell you.
And your role there as well,
yes.
too.
Yes, so I'll actually tell you. So I started as a client as well. So we have a lot of folks on our staff that started as clients and then joined the organization in some way or another. And you'll hear Liz's, her journey with that as well. But the organization, we are a resource partner with the Small Business Administration. So we are partially funded through the Small Business Administration, similar to the Small Business Development Center and SCORE. We receive part of our funding from them. But our mission, we are here to lift up women who lift up the world, like you and like you.
I love it.
And we're doing that, we want to help women who see entrepreneurship as a pathway to economic empowerment. And so we provide one-on-one business counseling as well as training through workshops and classes, just helping people find out, is business ownership right for me? And how do I do that?
Right. Yeah, and I can tell you, when I started the entrepreneurship journey, I was terrified, right? I was terrified because statistically, when it comes to women-owned businesses, one, the failure rate it tends to be higher, and two, just the funding for women is kind of missing, and it's actually the statistics shows that it has dropped.
Yes.
What is one of the biggest deterrents that you see when as clients are coming in and coming to you? Is it fear like me, or like what are their concerns, or is it just they don't even know where to start?
It depends, but we definitely see a lot of women feeling like they have to cross every T and dot every I before they take the leap. They feel like they have to have all of the degrees, all of the experience, like a resume a mile long, before they can be taken seriously. And we know that in part comes from we're challenged all the time as women to justify our expertise. And so we do, that's a big one, that women come in with, but definitely, how do I make this happen with little to no money?
Right. Yeah, that's a huge challenge. And let's bring in Liz, because you are kind of like a success story. You came in, you started your business, and then now you're also like a partner, a consultant. Share with us your journey. Like, how did you become an entrepreneur?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity, Flo and Chandra, to sit alongside you both. It's certainly an honor. So I launched my small business in investment management in 2019 after spending about 15 years in financial services working with large institutions, Windhaven Investment Management, Charles Schwab, Fidelity. And that was really a series of roles all across front, middle, and back office. And so when it came to the relationship building and the fiduciary advice and guidance, it was something that was very much segregated across large institutions that I wanted to bring together. And so really in looking for resources and also whether I was in a fear bubble, I mean, it wasn't a fear bubble because it was a launch. I had, my son was 6 months old when we relocated to really find space to launch a business at some point, and then he was 18 months, 2 years old when I actually launched, and my daughter was 3. So it was a lot of fear. I was the primary income earner in the household at the time. And I had reached into the CWE to see what type of guidance and support I could receive when it comes to just understanding the beginning to end of business planning, technical assistance towards understanding funding and really what that looked like. And so I then grew into a need for, of course, additional income and revenue that stemmed into the COVID pandemic, that my skill set in moving funds through the global financial system really came to benefit, where I was able to partner and be contracted in as staff as the project manager for COVID.
Nice.
So I was able to counsel for-profit businesses in the state that needed to submit for PPP and EIDL, and also really make some changes to their financial statements to make sure that they were successful in any form of repayment or just the process going forward. And so a lot of the times it was removing that that mindset that we need to have everything perfect, particularly when it comes to the application. It was really building confidence in business owners that they could just plop a picture of their dog or plant as a placeholder, that the institution will follow up, that they see that there's some effort in that moment. So there's something that needs to come back. So just to get the applications in on the pipeline to keep it moving. So in terms of really just kind of that pipeline, that conveyor belt, whatever, we want to look at it for the application process. And that really grew into my ability to partner as a consultant following, I guess, COVID's still happening, but post-pandemic, in terms of really teaching market analysis and providing individual one-on-one coaching and counseling for small businesses to really continue that type of support.
Yeah, and speaking about this, let's jump into the resources, because you just mentioned like, hey, I'm now as a partner at CWE, you're helping other clients that are coming in terms of coaching and regarding to marketing their business, because you're at this point been there, done that, right? You've gone through this process flow as your business owner. So there are workshops that are available. It seems like there's also opportunity for mentorships. Let's get a little bit more detail in terms of the breakdown of the type of courses that someone who's looking to start a business can leverage, and just the benefits that are available currently.
Absolutely, and you just opened the door to like a really important thing. I'd mentioned before that we are one of the SBA resource partners, right? So all of us are a little bit different, and some of them operate on a mentorship model, some of them don't. For us, for our organization, we're kind of like your phone a friend. So mentoring is a little bit different. Like the expectation, right, is that you're assigned one person and you meet with this person about anything and everything pretty much whenever you want to over a long period of time. For us, like our role, we're the one-on-one business advising. So if you come to us and you say, I have like these 3 big problems and I don't know what to do, then we're going to look at those with you. We're going to help you see how they all connect together, and then we're going to tease out which of our experts, like Liz, that you would benefit from meeting one-on-one with to tackle those problems. So we're kind of your point person. Trisha Utley is my client experience coordinator. She's amazing. She's the point person for clients, and she's kind of like the air traffic controller. So it might be that, someone might need to meet with Liz to talk about market analysis, but maybe they need to meet with an attorney about drafting a contract, things like that. So it's really important that people understand when they come to us, we're the phone a friend. But then if you really want a mentor and you want that long-term relationship, we're going to work with you to find the organization or the way that you can find a mentor, because that won't be with us. And that's a really important thing that we want clients to understand. We want people to really get what we do so that they feel like they've gotten what they need when they leave from us.
Right.
So I love that. And then, so in addition, to the one-on-one business advising, you'd mentioned too, we do the workshops and the trainings. So that could be, a 90-minute workshop on, is entrepreneurship right for you? Looking at your whole life situation, your expertise, your skills, what you're looking for, and giving you an idea of what entrepreneurship looks like. All the way through, you've been in business for 15 years and you realize you haven't really thought about succession planning. You haven't thought about what happens maybe when you want to transition out, what does that look like? And everything in between. So we also have, for those folks that are either starting out, or maybe you've been in business, but you want to apply for, a new type of funding, or you just need a revamp, we have a 10-session business planning course that kind of walks you through all the parts of a business plan that is especially important when you are trying to access funding. And then we also, for folks that are kind of looking to level up their business, they've been around for a little while, we have a 13-session strategic planning course also.
Yeah, I mean, so many resources available. And one thing that I like that you're mentioning other organizations. So it seems like there's definitely community partnerships and collaboration where it's, hey, if CWE doesn't offer that resources, we can do our best to help you, to connect you with another organization that can provide those resources. What do you see as the trend that has happened since COVID? Because I know what I've seen when I've done research is that there's an increase in women that are turning into entrepreneurship. Various circumstances, some of it has to deal with childcare, the increase in childcare and just trying to make that decision of, do I give my check to daycare or do I just stay home and be an entrepreneur and have a more flexible schedule? Or the other one that I see is women, who are just kind of tired of doing the 9 to 5 and just not growing in their careers, so they end up just saying, you know what, I'll create my own business and scale that way. What are you kind of seeing are the trends? Are you seeing an increase in entrepreneurship from women, or are you kind of seeing a decrease?
I think there is an increase. I think for us and for the clients we serve specifically, like the more trends that I'm seeing is really around how women are approaching it. I think, yes, there's an increase, but for us, what we've seen as a really positive that came out of COVID, before COVID, and it's not that I don't think this fear still exists, numbers and the financials, it was always really hard to fill those classes. We all know that we need to understand our business finances, but unless you love numbers,
right.
It was really hard because there's a lot of fear, there's a lot of emotion, there's a lot of psychology involved in our relationship with money, and that would get in the way sometimes. But with COVID, everybody realized I have to do this, and it's actually going to make me more powerful in making decisions in my business if I understand these numbers. Like, I'm going to be more in control and can make better decisions. So now our financial classes fill up.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And Liz, having someone who has the expertise in the financial industry, for a woman who's watching right now, who's like, hey, I've been really considering starting my own business, what are the tips that you can give? Because there's some people who, kind of like what you mentioned, they feel like they got to cross the I's, the T's, they got to, I got to build up like, $80,000 worth of wealth before I can start. Do they start scared? Do they do it scared, or what do they do?
Sure. So thank you. I think there's a level of fear when it comes to uncertainty, regardless of what way we're going. When we see that now with the economics of the impeding recession, right? The discussion of high interest rates in an environment that we haven't really dealt with before since the global financial crisis, where we saw some volatility and disruptions. And so fear is a natural human response and emotion, and I think that when we can pinpoint that to what it does to individuals and us when we're looking at our money or talking about money or talking about something that we're just simply not familiar with, whether it be somebody who's an engineer or whether it be somebody who's a physician, whether it be somebody who is a teacher, if they're teaching English, and we have to talk about the labor force of how people are earning money and the time value, right, of money. And I think that's what was one of the disruptions during COVID is people are, I'm spending 2 hours driving each way, I'm losing money, so I'm going to do this. And we see the statistics where it does show an increase in entrepreneurship, female entrepreneurship. And so for anyone who's considering starting a business or maybe taking their business to the next level from beta testing, which is what I call it, instead of like labeling it a hobby, because my thought is if you're creating a product or a service and you're offering that to anyone, then that is your beta testing.
Right.
And so it's really considering, well, what is the, one, your passion for it and your interest in it, because 90%, 80% of the time that you're spending is on the infrastructure and the administrative part of the product generally, and then that last 10 to 15% is that pitch, is that delivery, is that product creation piece. And so we have to think of it holistically of when you're launching a business, you're doing all of the things,
Right.
from cleaning the toilets to sitting with a nice suit to going to pitch competitions. And so it's very much based on the trade-offs and then making a holistic decision. And then when it comes to funding, it's determining, okay, well, do I have enough money to survive over the next, perhaps year to 18 months to be able to get my business up and running?
Right.
And what happens if I don't get approved for a loan? And can I pay back and service this loan if it's at a high interest rate given the environment? And
Right.
so many times with a lot of investors or even any lenders, a lot of institutions want to see that there is capital savings that's invested by the owner. And so it doesn't many times have to be a large amount, but it has to be something. And so whether that be, in this case we can say sweat equity is always large, because that's the amount of time of unpaid labor that you're putting into your business. However, when it comes to savings, capital, what risks have you taken to bet on yourself before we bet on you?
Right, right. So essentially, to sum it up, is be prepared to be broke for a little bit. Because that's what entrepreneurship is about. But it's an investment, right? It's like with anything else. Whether you're in school or no matter your industry, you got to put in the work.
That's right.
And it might not be easy, but I guess it's like the question that you have to ask is, is this something that I really want? And if I want it, and am I willing to kind of be determined, be patient, and just resilient? Because sometimes things might not fall into pieces today, but tomorrow, you can end up like Oprah. You could wake up like Oprah, because now all of a sudden everybody wants to buy your product and use your services. I'm still waiting for that part. So let's take a little bit more about the statistics of women in business and why now more than ever we need an organization like CWE. One of the things that I did mention when we started is just that the funding for women, it has actually decreased, and I'm honestly concerned because of that. Now I'm starting to wonder what's the longevity, the sustainability of women being able to start their business, launch it, and continue to push forward with it. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Sure. I think, it is interesting when you look at the numbers, right? They have shown that out of all the commercial loans, the actual dollars that go to women, it's only 4% of all commercial loans that go to women.
That's peanuts.
Yes, it really is. And at the same time, I do think that there's more of an awareness and a push, to make more funding sources available to women. There are more conversations, in the angel investing environment about creating angel, groups that are by and for women, because they, all the studies do show when a woman goes into, pitch an angel investing group and a man goes in, they're actually asked different questions. We talked about this on a panel that Liz participated in for International Women's Day. Women tend to be asked questions about the risk of their business, while men tend to be, asked about the ROI. Like, what are these, what's your projection?
Right.
When are we getting all this back? But
Right.
the women are like, are we going to get this back?
Right.
And so there's a and it's also looking at the types of businesses that are invested in, because still one of the things Liz mentioned, women can sometimes be told that their business is a hobby business, and that's not helpful, because the a healthy economic ecosystem needs all of it, and they all have the same value ultimately at the end of the day to create a whole community and a healthy economic community. So one of the things that we're trying to do, like we don't have, a loan or a grant program, but what we try and do is to make sure that women know what their options are, all the way from, do you know what Kiva is? Because Kiva, it's very small and it is a loan, so you pay it back, but there's 0% interest rate, and it can help you get that seed money that you need if you don't have a lot in your pocket yourself.
Right.
And can help you just start the very beginning, and it helps you build credit so that you can then move on to perhaps like a community-based lender, that they're going to be able to see, oh, you've done this, you've paid it back, you're starting to grow, we can put a little more trust in you.
Right.
All the way to a commercial bank loan. Then you've been in business for a few years and you're able to provide all that financial information. They know you're solid and you're going to be more likely to get access to some of those commercial loan dollars. So I think a lot of it is just helping people to become aware of what pathways there are out there and to continue to also amplify and share out the stories of women's success stories.
Right.
Because then we're going to show much more clearly the impact that women truly have on the economy, which will, in my mind, only help make those dollars more available because the whole world will see what we can do.
Yeah, and I think I can't remember if it was this year or last year where CWE had a presentation. There was like a country singer who was a keynote speaker. I think it might have been last year, and it was very powerful because we got into kind of like breakout rooms, and in those breakout rooms, they kind of spotlighted women who had successfully launched their businesses. And that small group discussion was just like, it was so refreshing, right? To hear people talk about, well, yeah, I struggled, I had moments of failure, but here's where I am today, and keep pushing, keep fighting, just keep pushing forward. One of the things I also love is the education piece, because the financing piece can be very tricky, and some people might not understand the level of funding. Do I have to pay this back? Or this is a grant, I don't have to pay that back. So I do love that fact that you guys kind of incorporate that. So people can make wiser decisions that don't, put them at risk, 2 years from now of not being able, like you mentioned, paying back loans or not being aware there is a 0% loan that you can take out. So all this is great critical education for any woman entrepreneur out there who's definitely looking for some assistance. Now, what are some of the industries that you're seeing that are doing well right here in New Hampshire?
So again, I'll speak to kind of like our clients, because I think all of the SBA resource partners kind of have a sweet spot, and like the people that find their home with us. And for us, we have a lot of artists and makers, that are, trying to figure out how do you monetize yourself as an artist? That's not often where your brain is.
Right.
And then how do they look at diversifying what they do? Maybe they're a painter, but there are so many other things that go into being a painter that they can actually support their community through and make more money through. So we do see a lot of artists and makers. We see a lot of food businesses, either food products. A lot of it is oftentimes food products, folks wanting to get, a beverage or a snack or whatever it is into stores. But we've also been seeing an increase in women-owned construction-related businesses, which I think is really exciting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, like remodeling, landscaping, construction itself. We have clients who are looking at how to help construction businesses themselves and provide services that construction businesses themselves need. So those are the most kind of exciting things, I think. But we also have a lot of kind of personal care industry folks. So we have, estheticians and massage therapists, folks like that. Health and wellness, is another big sector that we see a lot of women in. And then also professional services, similar to what Liz does. So.
Yeah, and I think the other thing probably maybe like web design, graphic design probably too, because we got some people here that do it around here, just looking back to some of our staff. So and that's the hardest part, right? It's like, how do you, and you kind of mentioned it, how do you go from that, this is not just a hobby, but I can convert this into a business. There's a woman that I follow on LinkedIn, and she's called the Sock Queen. And she found a way to essentially customize socks and sell them like wholesale. So some of her clients would be like, the local high school. Maybe they want to do a fundraiser instead of those pies that cost like $40. You guys are laughing, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. But it could be socks that are customized by, the high school logo and stuff like that. And she is doing incredible. So just something like socks has become a booming business for her. So I think the message in that is, you might think it might be something insignificant, but it could be something that someone is like, oh my God, that's exactly what I was looking for. A pair of socks that I can put my dog's face on so I can wear them to work every day,
That's right. And that's how markets are created. That's exactly based on demand.
Yeah.
And then that supply comes in as the business owner and entrepreneur that's going to go ahead and feed to that demand, and it's going to increase through marketing, and then boom. You have a Tesla.
Right.
And I think it opens up a really cool point that I realized I hadn't even mentioned yet about our services. So you're talking about this woman who is able to work with schools and things like that wholesale. So the other part, of our CWE program, we are the New England affiliate for the Women's Business Enterprise National Council. It's a mouthful.
Yeah,
you can just say WeBank. It's much easier to say WeBank. But basically, for women, again, so there's access to capital, right, through loans and things like that. But another way that women can build their businesses and grow their businesses is through contracting.
Yeah.
So that could be selling to the federal government, but it could also be, if you are a construction business, maybe you're a small construction business and you specialize in, pouring concrete, and there's, a target going in down the road. You might be able to come in, as a subcontractor, on that.
Yeah.
And the thing that WeBank can do for women, a lot of places now, the federal government, but also corporations have supplier diversity initiatives.
Yes.
They're wanting to give businesses to woman-owned, minority-owned, veteran-owned businesses so that these folks can actually have the impact that's possible.
Yeah.
So what we can do through WeBank is to help women become certified women-owned small businesses so that they can compete in a smaller pool for those contracts. And WeBank is focused on the private sector, but if you are coming to us for that already, we're going to help you with the federal women-owned small business certification as well, and we're not going to, it's just we can bundle it all together for you.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's a whole another market right there, of getting those government contracts that if you get them consistently, that is great income and revenue that can come in. And that whole process can be a nightmare of trying to get the certification. So getting that help, because I know some people who end up just saying, hey, I gave up. But getting that help to go through that process and certifying yourself, your business will open you up to, that ability to generate the contracts. That's revenue that can come in. And you continue to build your business, whatever it may be. And any final last words, what else do people need to know about CWE that you don't think we've covered so far?
I think we've covered most everything about us, other than I think you had mentioned, we do have the annual conference, so please, check out, our website to learn more about that too, and just all the opportunities. The other thing I will say, so I am the director within the New Hampshire office, but we do have 4 other women's business centers across New England, and most all of our programming right now is virtual. So if you look at the New Hampshire page and you don't quite see the training or the workshop available that's what you're looking for, the cool thing is you can sign on to any of the workshops that are offered across our footprint. And it also means, too, for the one-on-one business advising, if you call us, you have a specific question and maybe we don't have that in New Hampshire, I'm going to be able to reach out, to my counterparts and our other centers and tap into their resources as well.
Yeah.
And I think the last 2 things I think that I would say just to anyone who is thinking about or starting, a business right now is don't think create the big idea, have your big vision, pie in the sky vision, but don't get discouraged if you can't start out at that level.
Right.
That's one of the things that we work with people on all the time is like, it's okay to start with step one.
Right.
And grow from there. Don't feel like it's a failure if you can't start with your huge vision right out of the gate.
Yeah.
And we're here to help you kind of figure out what that step one looks like and how do you get you there.
I mean, that's a great point. And you can turn that failure into like a redirection, right? Like last year I initially was like, oh, I'm going to build this app and I'm going to call it cheap and it's just going to be fantastic. And in the process of doing that, I created Get Tech Smart. And then it opened up this other can of worms that I did not anticipate. So although I'm like, hey, I'm going to shelve this part of the business because I see the need and the demand of this other part of the business. So there's always moments where you have the ability to pivot, and that is A-okay, you know. What is your last input for any women entrepreneurs out there who are like, oh man, this sounds all great, but are they just really blowing a lot of smoke here?
Yeah, I'd say jump, just go for it. You have to get out of our own heads, right? And just throw it. It's going to be messy. It's not going to be perfect. Nothing is anyone's first time. And then receive input, receive advice and guidance. You know, it's not an ego thing to try to be the biggest in the marketplace because, as Chandra mentioned, nobody starts off there. So it's a process and it's a strategic play to be able to amend your processes to most affect the business in the most positive trajectory. So jump, get the ego out of the way, and get the fear. It's going to be there. Get used to it.
No, that is true. I mean, and we're right here at the Community Access Center. You know who started the Community Access Center? Oprah. And now she's, I don't know, 3.5 billion. So you can start small, celebrate the small victories, and just, you know, one brick at a time. And yeah, so I love everything that's going on at CWE. And I thank you both for coming to, you know, again, technically, we're still in March as of today, although by the time I release this episode, it won't be March, but it is my theme for Women's History Month, so we're still right in time because, yes, we definitely need the extra resources and have your expertise and your passion and commitment as the director to assure that women across all demographics and backgrounds are getting the resources they need to have successful entrepreneurship launches, right? So thank you so much again for being here, guys. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, and to all of you watching, thank you so much for watching another episode of Get Resource Smart. And stay tuned for more as I continue to bring in organizations across the state that are providing resources to help us New Hampshire residents.